The autumn rain tapped against the windows as I prepared dinner for another one of Marcus's weekend gatherings. My stepson had invited his longtime friend David over again, something that had become routine since they'd started their senior year. David had been coming to our house for nearly 3 years now, ever since he and Marcus bonded over their shared love of basketball. I watched him grow from a shy teenager into someone more confident and self-assured. There was something different about him lately, the way he carried himself, the thoughtful way he spoke. Tonight felt different too, though I couldn't place why. "Smells incredible, Miss Chen," David said as he walked into the kitchen, setting down his weekend bag. His voice had that warm quality that always made me smile. "You say that every time," I laughed, stirring the pasta sauce. "Either I'm getting better at cooking, or you boys are just perpetually hungry." "Probably both," he grinned, and there was something in his expression that made me pause. Not inappropriate, just aware, like he was really seeing me, not just going through the motions of polite conversation. Dinner was filled with their usual chatter about college plans, sports, and weekend adventures. I enjoyed listening to their dreams and ambitions, occasionally offering advice when they asked. But I noticed David glancing my way several times during the meal, not in any disrespectful manner, but with genuine interest in what I had to say. After they cleaned up, the boys settled into the den for their gaming session. I busied myself with evening chores, folding laundry and organizing the week ahead. As I passed by the den with a basket of clean clothes, I caught David's eyes following my movement. Our gazes met for just a moment before he looked back at the screen, but something stirred in that brief connection. The house grew quiet around midnight. I was in my bedroom, trying to focus on a novel I'd been attempting to finish for weeks, when I heard the soft creak of floorboards in the hallway. Thinking Marcus might need something, I slipped on my cardigan and stepped out to check. Instead, I found David in the hallway, looking surprised to see me awake. "Couldn't sleep," he said quietly, running his hand through his hair. "Thought I'd get some water." "I understand," I replied, walking with him toward the kitchen. Sometimes sleep just doesn't come. We moved through the house carefully, both conscious of not disturbing Marcus. David filled 2 glasses with water, handing one to me. We stood in the soft glow of the under-cabinet lighting, sipping slowly. "You look tired," he observed gently. "I suppose I am," I admitted, leaning against the counter. "It's been a challenging week. You're always taking care of everyone," he said, his voice soft but serious. "But who looks after you?" The question caught me off guard. It was surprisingly mature, surprisingly perceptive. I felt something shift in the quiet space between us. "I managed just fine," I said. Though my voice wavered slightly, he stepped closer, not invasively, but enough that I could sense his presence more acutely. "You always seem so capable, so strong, but that must get exhausting." I looked up at him then, really looked at him. When had he become so thoughtful, so attuned to others' feelings? This wasn't the awkward teenager who used to stumble over his words around adults. "I should probably get back to bed," I said, though I made no move to leave. "You could," he said softly, "but you don't have to." "Not if you don't want to." There was something in his eyes, not presumption, not arrogance, just genuine care. I felt seen in a way I hadn't experienced in years, not as someone's mother, not as someone's ex-wife, but as myself. "This is complicated," I whispered. "You're Marcus's best friend. I'm someone who cares about you," he said simply. "Someone who sees how much you give to everyone else." The sincerity in his voice broke through the walls I'd built around my heart. When was the last time someone had noticed my needs, had seen past my role as caretaker to the person underneath? Without thinking, I reached out and touched his arm. He covered my hand with his, warm and gentle. "I don't know what this means," I said, my voice barely audible. "It doesn't have to mean anything more than this moment," he replied. "Just 2 people who understand each other." In the soft kitchen light, with the world asleep around us, something shifted. He leaned closer, and I didn't pull away. When his lips met mine, It was tender, questioning. I found myself responding, letting myself feel something I'd buried for too long. We moved to the living room, settling onto the couch together. Every touch was gentle, respectful, as if he understood the magnitude of what was happening. I felt cherished, valued, desired not for what I could do for others but for who I was. We talked in whispers, sharing thoughts and feelings that daylight might have made too vulnerable to voice. His hands traced gentle patterns on my back as I rested against him, feeling safer and more understood than I had in years. When morning came, I woke to find him gone. On the kitchen table was a simple note: "Thank you for letting me see you." The following days were filled with reflection. I wrestled with guilt, with worry about Marcus, with questions about what it all meant. But underneath the complexity was something I couldn't deny. I felt more alive than I had in years. When I saw David again, it was at the local market. Our eyes met across the produce section, and in that moment, all the connection came flooding back. "I'm still here," he said quietly when our paths crossed. "Whatever you need, whatever you decide." Standing there among the everyday bustle of grocery shopping, I realized something profound. Life rarely offers perfect situations or easy answers, but sometimes it offers moments of genuine connection, chances to be truly seen and valued. I don't know what the future holds. I don't know how to navigate the complexities ahead, but for the first time in years, I feel like I'm living rather than just existing. I feel worthy of care, of attention, of love, not just as someone who gives it, but as someone who deserves to receive it. The path forward is uncertain, but I'm no longer afraid to walk it. Sometimes the most important thing we can do is allow ourselves to be honest about our needs, our feelings, our worth as human beings deserving of connection and understanding. In the end, maybe that's what courage really is: not the absence of fear, but the willingness to remain open to love, to connection, to the possibility that we are worthy of being seen and cherished for exactly who we are. 3 months later, the coffee shop was bustling with its usual afternoon crowd when David and I met there, a neutral space that had become our sanctuary for honest conversations. We'd been meeting like this for weeks now, slowly navigating the delicate balance between what we felt and what we knew was responsible. Marcus got into State University, I told him, stirring my latte absently. "He's over the moon about it." David's face lit up with genuine happiness for his friend. "That's incredible. He's worked so hard for that. He wants to have a celebration dinner next weekend," I continued, meeting his eyes. "He specifically asked me to invite you." We both understood the weight of that invitation. It would be the first time the three of us would be together since that night, with Marcus completely unaware of how things had changed between David and me. "How do you feel about that?" David asked carefully. I'd been asking myself the same question for days. "Nervous," I admitted, "but also ready, I think. We can't keep living in this limbo forever." Over the past few months, David and I had been incredibly careful. We'd taken things slowly, meeting for coffee, taking walks in the park, having long conversations about everything and nothing. He'd been patient beyond his years, never pressuring me, always respecting the boundaries I needed to maintain. "I've been thinking about graduation," David said, wrapping his hands around his coffee cup. "About college, about what comes next." My heart clenched slightly. I'd been dreading this conversation while simultaneously knowing it was inevitable. "Where are you thinking of going?" "I got accepted to several places," he said quietly. "But there's one that keeps calling to me. It's about 2 hours away. Close enough to visit, far enough to start fresh." I nodded, understanding what he wasn't saying. The distance would give us both space to figure out what this connection really was, free from the complications of our current situation. "That sounds perfect," I said, and meant it. "Sarah," he said, using my first name like he had started doing in our private moments. "I want you to know that these months, getting to know you, really know you, they've meant everything to me. You've taught me what it means to truly care for someone, to see them as a whole person, tears pricked at my eyes. "You've given me something I didn't even know I was missing," I replied. "You helped me remember who I am beyond all the roles I play." The conversation was interrupted by my phone buzzing. Marcus was texting about dinner plans, completely oblivious to the emotional moment his mother and best friend were sharing, the celebration dinner following Saturday. I prepared Marcus's favorite meal, grilled salmon with roasted vegetables and homemade bread, the kitchen filled with warm, familiar scents as I cooked, but my nerves were anything but settled. David arrived right on time, bringing flowers for me and a congratulatory gift for Marcus. Watching them embrace in their typical brotherly fashion, I felt a pang of emotion. Their friendship was real and precious, and I would never want to damage that. Dinner went smoothly. Marcus was animated, talking about his college plans, his excitement about living on campus, his dreams for the future. David was supportive and encouraging, the perfect friend celebrating his buddy's success. I caught David's eye several times during the meal, small moments of connection that Marcus was too excited to notice. Each glance carried the weight of our shared secret, but also a warmth that made me feel less alone. After dessert, Marcus excused himself to take a call from his girlfriend. David and I were left alone in the dining room, the comfortable quiet that had become familiar between us settling over the space. "He's going to be fine," David said, seeming to read my thoughts about Marcus leaving for college. "I know," I replied. "I'm proud of him and grateful that he has a friend like you, Sarah," David said, his voice taking on that serious tone I'd come to recognize. "I need to tell you something." My heart rate quickened. "What is it?" "I've decided to go to college in California," he said. "I got a last-minute acceptance to a program there that's perfect for what I want to study." California. That was much farther than 2 hours away. When I asked, though I dreaded the answer, "I leave in August," he said. Right after graduation, I felt the familiar sting of impending loss, but also something else: relief. The distance would solve the immediate complexity of our situation, would give us both the chance to grow and explore who we were without the weight of potential judgment. "That's wonderful," I said, and I meant it. "You should follow your dreams. I'm not disappearing from your life," he said firmly. "If you want me in it, I'll be in it." It might look different, but the connection we have, that doesn't just go away. Marcus returned before I could respond, full of energy about his phone call. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of laughter, stories, and the bittersweet awareness that everything was about to change. 6 months later, was in my garden, planting fall bulbs for next spring's flowers, when my phone rang. David's name appeared on the screen, and I felt that familiar flutter of happiness I always experienced when I heard from him. "How's California treating you?" I asked, settling onto the garden bench. "It's incredible," he said, and I could hear the genuine excitement in his voice. "The program is challenging. I've made some great friends, and I'm actually working on a project that might help develop sustainable housing solutions." "That sounds exactly like something you'd be passionate about," I replied, remembering our conversations about his desire to make a positive impact on the world. "How's the empty nest?" he asked. I looked around at my quiet garden, at the house that no longer echoed with teenage voices and weekend gatherings. "Peaceful," I admitted. "Lonely sometimes, but peaceful. I'm learning to enjoy my own company again." "And are you enjoying it?" I considered the question. Over the past few months, I'd rediscovered parts of myself that had been dormant for years. I'd started taking art classes, joined a book club, even went on a few dates with a kind man I'd met at the community center. I said, surprised by how true it felt. "I'm learning that I can be happy on my own, which makes me better at being happy with others too." "I'm glad," David said, and his voice carried that same warmth that had first caught my attention. "You deserve all the happiness in the world." We talked for another hour, sharing updates about our lives, our growth, our discoveries about ourselves. The conversation flowed as naturally as it always had, but there was something different now, a maturity, at peace with where we both were in our journeys. David, I said as our conversation began to wind down, I want you to know that what we shared, those moments we had, they changed me. They helped me understand my worth in a way I'd never experienced before. You changed me too, he replied. You taught me what it means to truly care for someone, to see them completely and love what you see. Love? I asked softly. Yes, he said without hesitation. Love, not possessive or demanding love, but the kind that wants the best for someone. Regardless of where that leads, I felt tears in my eyes, but they were tears of gratitude, not sadness. I love you too, I said, in all the ways that matter. 2 years later, graduation ceremony was held in the university's largest auditorium. I sat in the family section, watching as David walked across the stage to receive his diploma. He'd finished his degree in environmental engineering with honors, and I couldn't have been prouder. Marcus sat beside me, equally proud of his best friend's achievement. He'd grown so much during his own college years, becoming the confident, compassionate young man I'd always known he could be. After the ceremony, we met David outside the auditorium. He looked handsome in his cap and gown, his face glowing with accomplishment and joy. Congratulations, I said, giving him a warm hug that felt both familiar and appropriately restrained. Thank you for being here, he replied, his eyes holding mine for just a moment longer than might seem casual to an observer. Wouldn't miss it, Marcus chimed in, slapping his friend on the back. So what's next? Are you staying in California? Actually, David said, glancing between us, I got a job offer with an environmental consulting firm. They have offices in several states. That's fantastic, I said. Where will you be based? I get to choose, he said, his eyes meeting mine again. I'm thinking somewhere that feels like home. Later that evening, the three of us had dinner at a nice restaurant near campus. The conversation flowed easily, filled with memories, dreams, and plans for the future. Marcus talked about his own upcoming graduation and his plans to travel before starting his career. David shared his excitement about his new job and the projects he'd be working on. As the evening wound down, Marcus excused himself to call his girlfriend, leaving David and me alone at the table. So, I said, swirling the wine in my glass, where does home feel like to you these days? Wherever you are, he said simply, no hesitation in his voice. My heart skipped, but I also felt a calm certainty that surprised me. David, we're both different people than we were 2 years ago. I know, he said. I've dated other people, experienced different relationships, grown in ways I needed to grow. But what I feel for you, what I learned about love from knowing you, that's been my compass through everything else. I've grown too, I said. I've learned to be happy alone, to value myself independent of any relationship. I've even dated, found connections with people my own age. And he asked, though his expression suggested he already knew the answer, and none of them made me feel the way you do, I admitted. Not because they weren't good men, but because what we have is unique. It's built on genuine understanding, mutual respect, and a connection that goes beyond age or circumstances. Marcus returned to the table, oblivious to the moment he'd interrupted. But as we prepared to leave the restaurant, David caught my hand briefly. Have dinner with me tomorrow? He asked quietly. Just us. I'd like to talk about the future. I'd like that, I replied. The future. A year later, David and I were married in a small ceremony attended by close family and friends. Marcus was David's best man, having fully embraced our relationship once we explained how it had developed over time. His initial surprise had quickly given way to happiness when he saw how genuinely we cared for each other. I always knew there was something special about you two, he'd said after we told him about our engagement. I couldn't put my finger on it, but you just fit together, and you both seem happier than I've ever seen you. Our wedding was simple but meaningful, focused on the commitment we were making to build a life together based on mutual respect, shared values, and deep, abiding love. Now, As I sit in our garden, the same garden where I once planted bulbs alone, I watch David working on plans for a sustainable community development project. The afternoon sun highlights the concentration on his face, and I feel that familiar flutter of happiness that comes from being truly seen and cherished. Our love story doesn't fit into conventional categories. It began in complexity and grew through patience, respect, and genuine care for each other's well-being. We've both been changed by it, made better by the challenge of loving someone in a way that honored both our individual growth and our connection. Marcus visits often, sometimes bringing his girlfriend, sometimes his college friends. Our home has become a gathering place again, filled with laughter, good food, and the kind of deep conversations that matter. He and David's friendship has only grown stronger, built now on the foundation of two men who respect and care for each other as equals. Some people don't understand our relationship, and that's okay. We've learned that the most important thing is not whether others approve, but whether we can look at ourselves in the mirror each day and know that we've acted with integrity, kindness, and genuine love. Love, we've discovered, isn't always convenient or conventional, but when it's real, when it's built on mutual respect, shared growth, and the courage to be vulnerable with each other, it becomes a source of strength that makes everything else possible. As David looks up from his work and smiles at me, I'm reminded once again that the best love stories aren't the ones that follow expected patterns, but the ones that honor the complicated, beautiful, ever-changing nature of human connection. We've built something together that neither of us could have imagined that first night in the kitchen, something that has enriched not just our own lives but the lives of everyone around us. And every day, I'm grateful for the courage we both found to follow our hearts toward a love that has made us better people. This is our story, unconventional, complicated, and ultimately beautiful in its honesty and depth. It's a story about the courage to be seen, the strength to grow, and the wisdom to recognize love when it appears, even when it comes in unexpected forms.